Bunker Hill Community College is inspiring dreams through academic excellence, community engagement, and workforce partnerships. Learn more at bhcc.edu.
As Black LGBTQ plus communities age, what does it take for there to be dignity in their care? Joining me now are three powerful voices: Reverend Irene Monroe, theologian, syndicated columnist, and co-host of All Revved Up here at GBH. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dr. Angelique Harris, sociologist and author of Womanist AIDS Activism. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
And last but certainly not least, Tre Johnson, cultural critic and author of Black Genius, Essays on an American Legacy. So nice to have you.
Happy to be here too.
And thank you for making us stop on your book tour.
Oh, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
The fall.
And I really must state, I mean, given what I was just saying, you know, you all being here, all of us being here is a miracle, right? But you all being here, I think it's really can't be understated, that there was a time when a lot of young queer people didn't know how long they would exist, right? So that's a blessing. But Dr. Harris, I want to start with you because we had a lot of statistics there, and I'm curious, how would we say that systemic inequalities in our healthcare system have contributed to those numbers?
Pretty massively. So in essence, a lot of it is about access and people's access to resources and people's access to healthcare. And so if you're looking at, particularly looking at LGBTQ populations of color, they tend to have less access to healthcare regardless of their age. And so it's one of the things where if you're not getting preventative healthcare, that's an issue. And then on top of that, if you're looking at just the discrimination that they're experiencing in the healthcare system, the way that they're treated, the way that their access to certain medications and things like that, that it's really limited for a lot of people. And then also when you're thinking about within healthcare, the ability to have people who can advocate for you as well is really important. And so it's a major issue when you're looking at elderly people and elderly populations, especially within queer populations, because they quite often don't have the same types of people who could advocate for them within the hospital setting as other people in other populations would. For example, they're less likely to have children or like grandchildren, and this becomes an issue as people age. And so it's really about access, in essence, in the way in which they're treated in the healthcare system and who's really going to advocate for them.
And Reverend Irene, is some of this speaking to your own life experience?
Oh, absolutely, because within my population here, there's another component here, being out, okay? Because again, I'm of that generation where we still don't trust doctors, although I am married to one.
Shout out Dr.
Yes. But nonetheless, though, the whole idea of, can I be out with this doctor and really tell my history, you know, without shaming me or reinscribing the trauma. And then the other, when we talk about, you know, determinants of health, so you have that we worry about, can we be out? You know, assisted living places, that's another one. A lot of people go back into the closet. Another problem, too, again, is the church, you know.
Well, right now.
You're welcome to where I pastor, but that is an issue, you know, of how do you, you know, as an elderly person, find the church as your community where, you know, where straight Black folks and straight people in general, that's where you go. That's, you know, that's where you find community and the outreach that you're talking about.
Exactly. And so, Tre, I mean, what are some instances over time where we've seen Black queer communities, in the face of being denied care in these more traditional spaces, they've created it for themselves?
I mean, we were all in the green room talking about this a little bit earlier, but you know, I think of instances like Seneca Village and such, where, you know, or where I am here in Philadelphia, back in Philadelphia where I am, you know,
the other birthplace in America.
That's right. Exactly. You know, but I think West Philly has a deep tradition of community care around queer people. It's been huge for us for a long time. I think the problem has been the constant kind of slow ratification that we've all experienced and know about, whether that's gentrification or the rollback to traditional values, kind of disrupting the idea of living that out life that you're talking about, Reverend. And so I think like there have been patterns of and opportunities that you highlighted some of this in your monologue. I think the problem has been just like, how do you like sustain these? One of the big things that I think I'm kind of very much like just concerned about that I think touches on a lot of people's lives is this idea of like the accessible third spaces. Like we're just losing so many community spaces. The kind of entrenched isolation we know especially affects older people and then queer people on top of that. And so I think that's the thing that I'm very curious about is like how do we find ways to get back to reinstilling some of those like cultural sinews of third spaces.
Do you worry that about that happening given the socio-political climate that we're in? I know I said like maybe we don't have to talk about it. It's here.
It's come up.
But with found spaces, like here we have LGBT Elders of Color, you know, that's run by Paul Glass and Charles,
Yes,
you
we'll
know,
hear
Evans
from.
here. And that's important, you know, because it's culturally competent. Here we can be comfortable. I think that what I'm concerned about is, you know, how do you address your spiritual need? You know, and we worry about that, you know, the stuff of dying. Can we have a funeral? You know, what would that, you know, the end of life care and stuff.
And the dignity around
That's
it.
right.
Yes.
And those are the things that certainly that we are most concerned about at this point.
And what did, I mean, you know, Reverend Irene, you lived during the AIDS epidemic. What did memorializing people who had passed on look like in those times?
Well, you know, it's very, very interesting. You know, at the time that I was doing it, I was a young minister in the 80s there. It was quite sad because the community wouldn't come out. That's number one. We didn't have enough. See, I'm so early in the AIDS epidemic, we didn't have a name for it. And when we did, it was called GRID. But you didn't have the undertakers. Okay, because they worried would they get it. And similarly, it's so interesting how things repeat themselves because during COVID, the same thing. Undertakers would not take bodies here. And so I did a lot of funerals, unfortunately, you know, on Zoom. But there's a demographic group, even to this day, that did not accurately get counted during the COVID epidemic, and that's Black, trans women and transactional sex and the folks who died during that period. I knew a lot of them who did die, largely because I was known as I will funeralize you. I'll give you a proper funeral. Actually, I thought that was my business of being a minister because that's a part of why I went to become a minister. It's like Black folks, all Black folks need some dignity. If they can't have it in this life, let's do it, you know, in this afterlife.
And you know, the homegoing is an important, important
absolutely.
part of our cultural existence.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Harris, Reverend Irene is mentioning the AIDS epidemic as we recognize it now, years removed. But how did government policy, the way that the government approached that crisis, coupled with don't ask, don't tell, and so many other policies, how has that hindered our ability as a society to care for aging queer people?
Well, it made it so that a lot of them died, and people died and they never became elderly. And so it was one of the concerns, particularly when I did research, for example, on AIDS in Black churches years ago, and one of my people that I interviewed was talking about how he's a Black gay man. He was probably in his 50s at the time, but he was saying, though, that at the time of the interview, but he was saying that all of his friends were dead, that they had all died, and he's constantly had to make new friends and have a completely new network. So the people that he was with, his friend, his whole community and stuff, were like just dying. And so you have that trauma, and also in the complete just delay in being able and doing any sort of like financially providing funding. I think it was something really minor, like $8 million. I can't remember what it was going into HIV or AIDS research. I mean, it was just, they really wasn't doing much.
But then, see, you're right. It went into AIDS research. But disseminating the information and the accessibility to Black men and women was not done. So even when the AIDS epidemic became feminized and it went over that, yes, women are dying, Black women were dying disproportionately. To this day, we have the Bed Reston breakfast, and one of the tributes and awards we give is to Belinda Dunn because she was a straight Black sister who died of AIDS, and so it's that sort of stuff, that not understanding the intersectionality of communities, of how we're all, if one is impacted, we all are impacted. So the entire community, in our community, suffered disproportionately because lack of access, lack of information, but the shame as well as the stigma, that went with it, which was bad. And then the church, spewing out that this is God's wrath against homosexuality. That's my generation of people that are still traumatized by that.
Yeah. There's a quote that the author, the orator of this quote escapes me at the moment, but it's something to the effect of, during the AIDS epidemic, we would protest we would bury our friends in the morning, we would protest in the afternoon, and we would party at night. And that was kind of this rinse, repeat cycle. Tre, we're not necessarily seeing that level of fervor around LGBTQ plus existence today, but what does the joy look like, even as people are facing this socio-political climate? Where is the joy to be found?
I think I talk about this a lot in my book. In Black Genius, one of the things I talk about is I have a chapter on performance and about the importance of performance, and I think that is a long-standing history in the queer culture. But still, it's now more than ever, right? Like that's a very trite phrase to use. But I look at where there are collectives. Again, back in Philly, I'm always going to shout out Philly because I love the place so much. But in Philly, we have a couple of community hub cultural collectives where it allows for people to have community spaces together to perform. So there's like the Black Star Film Festival, which helps raise film narratives around all types of marginalization inside of life, but in particular, I think around like Black queer voices. I think about the Roots Picnic, which is like this open canvas kind of space where everyone can come together. You can kind of like a la carte design the community experience that you want inside of this wide open space. Everyone's pouring into that stuff because I think, again, like a lot of what I'm hearing when I tease out what the two of y'all are saying is this fervent need more than ever for connection. I think in particular too, we have to think about like my concern around the state of the world nowadays on a smaller scale, even in a large conversation, is the ways that which like we have like, social media and digitized like lives that actually kind of still, even in an affinity type of way, still kind of like curdle this idea that our individual pursuit and individual life is what matters most. I think we need to still do a better job of curating cross-cultural, cross-identity experiences. And like the housing thing that you talked about at the beginning, that's the kind of stuff that really concerns me.
And do you think that at large we're becoming more inclusive? Like I think about how much division there has been between the Black community and Black queer people, right? Are we, and even during Black Lives Matter, we heard rallying cries for, look, we also need to talk about Black trans lives.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Black queer lives. Has that gap been bridged?
I don't think so. Look at the.
Not judging from the reactions at the table.
Look, this is the work. This is work that we as men have to do. This is work we as Black folks have to do, which is of the many things that you can take from the most recent election. We saw that part of the way that the right courted a lot of our people was around queerness, around anti-queerness explicitly. And there's a scarcity activation and an ignorance activation that's been festered and like kind of activated inside of a lot of Black male thought, not just Black male thought, but when I think about Black men and the way that we've drifted, right? One of the ways that they've been able to do it is to kind of activate this very present but latent type of homophobic fear around queerness, and I think that's widened the chasm all over again. It has such currency
in this at this moment, but we got to tell the truth and shame the devil. We do have some entrenched homophobic people. I mean, we got to deal with the toxic masculinity, the compulsory heterosexuality, the intersection of those two, and how today it's almost on steroids.
I mean, it's also glorified in such a completely different. Look at the music, the entertainment, and everything else, and it's so. And you think about even what other musical genre talks about women or queer people in those types of ways,
violent
and
ways.
So extremely violent ways and derogatory ways and such, and so that's part of it.
But you will age better, which is what I'm saying. You will age better and more in community than my generation, because I'm that generation where you couldn't even utter the word. Okay, so you can be out and find folks in a way that my way of being was so in the closet, that so in the closet that you're on the opposite side of the closet.
How did you two think about aging when you were? I don't know how old you were when you came out, but how did you think about aging around that time? And briefly.
I did not think about it at all, honestly. It did not cross my mind. It never really occurred to me. It was also well before there was same-sex marriage or anything like that. And I never thought about having children or anything. My focus was always on what my career would be. And that was primarily it. Even in coming out, it was what my career would be. And if I theoretically would end up with a partner and maybe they would do benefit. You know, so I didn't really think about the aging in the same way like that, in large part because, quite frankly, I didn't really know any elderly LGBTQ people. And so you don't really, it's a very ageist population, like a culture, I should say. When you look at queer clubs, they're very, it's very discriminatory in certain regards, where they treat people who are older usually a little bit differently. They're viewed a little bit differently within these spaces and not as welcome. And so it becomes a challenge where you just aren't really have opportunities to really engage with people like that. So it's hard to really envision what it would be like in the future like that for me.
See, that's amazing. See, that's the generational gap, which I'm glad. See, because you could worry about a career. I wasn't sure I could have one because when I was applying to seminary, you know, the two black seminaries I wanted to go to, I didn't get in. I mean, you know, so it raised. You could say it's academic, but it raises suspicion when you get into Harvard. You know what I mean? But the point was, I didn't even know if I could have a career, or I would even be ordained, or I had a church that would ordain me, because I had two strikes against me. I was a woman in the black church and a queer woman in the black church. So I thought of aging very much alone, you know. And then they sent me Thea. I said, well, oh my God.
And that's a testament to how partnership can definitely add to
30+ years. Okay.
Well, I think you know, it goes without saying that Reverend Irene, thank you for paving the way and making way for so many folks, including us here at this table, to exist in our wholeness here. We have so much more we could talk about. We're going to have to stop the conversation there. Thank you all so much for your wisdom and your work. This is just the beginning, so I hope we'll get to have you back and talk more about this. Black LGBTQ elders have shaped our movements, our culture, and our communities, and it's time we shape a future that honors them. Stay with us. We're proud to partner with Bunker Hill Community College, powering Boston's future workforce through access, equity, and innovation in higher education. Thank you for supporting Rooted in the Future of Public Media. Click the link in the description or visit bhcc.edu to learn more.